Hello class, let's continue with another of the tools of the promotional mix. And here in chapter 11, we will go over sales promotions and point of purchase. Learning objectives is first to explain the importance and growth of sales promotion, describe the main sales promotion techniques used in the consumer market, describe the main sales promotion techniques used in the trade channel and business market, right, in B2B marketing. Identify the risk to the brand of using sales promotions. Understand the role and techniques of point of purchase advertising. And also describe the role of support media, which are part all of a integrated marketing communication plan. So first of all, let's not get confused with the terms promotion and sales promotion. Remember that promotion is one of the 4 P's in the marketing mix, along with product, place distribution, price, and promotion, which can be broken down into different tools such as advertising, public relations, personal selling, direct marketing, event sponsorship, which we cover also in the course, right? And sales promotion is one of the components or one of the tools within the umbrella of promotion. So promotion is one of the 4 P's, and under that promotion category, you have different tools, one of which is sales promotion. So it's important to put the word sales before so that we can distinguish it. From a marketing standpoint, it's important for you to be professionals who are familiar with the terminology and the language in business for each concept. So what is sales promotion? Well, this is the use of incentive techniques that create a perception of greater brand value among consumers or the trade or business buyers. So this definition is important in that it focuses or it emphasizes the creation of a greater perceived value of the brand, right? So for example, a discount, as we see in this screen here, is not that effective to offer a discount of 20, 30, 40% off if consumers don't perceive that the brand or the product has a value. If consumers don't think that it has an intrinsic value, something that is beneficial and they appreciate, the discount that you offer will not probably be effective unless people realize that the value is so high or so desirable for your product or brand that saving 40, 50, 30%, whatever percentage of the price is such a good deal that you cannot miss that opportunity, right? Most advertising is designed to build brand awareness, image, and preference over the long run, right? The advertising activities, which are probably the most prominent tool of the promotion mix, right? We've talked about it. The advertising activity is something that provides reasons to buy, right? It's something that is more at a higher level, more massive media that is utilized, television, radio commercials, billboards, etc. And it is mostly used for the purpose of informing, right? Changing attitudes or reinforcing attitudes or beliefs about a product or brand. But this is more in the long run. On the other hand, what sales promotion does primarily is to trigger immediate purchase, immediate action by the consumers, right? You want to provide incentives to buy. So that's why integrated marketing communications campaign, ideally speaking, should incorporate various tools of the promotional mix, of course, depending on the product, the brand, etc. But by having different tools of the promotional mix deployed, you can accomplish different goals, right? So if you have a new product that is introduced in the market, probably advertising would be a good approach to get consumers to be aware of the brand and learn about some benefits, the positioning, right? The unique selling proposition of the product, the brand. And then in another front, later on, the incentives to buy will be presented in the forms of self-promotion when consumers who have heard or listened about your brand in advertising go to a store, right? And are presented with these incentives, with this trial samples, for example. You can get communications, of course, through social media or through the mail with a coupon, with a discount. So we will talk about this throughout this chapter in more detail. But at this point, we should recognize that self-promotion by itself will not be as effective as it would be complemented with advertising, and vice versa. Advertising by itself, in many cases, will not do the job, will not help the firm accomplish your objectives without some other incentive approaches which are provided through self-promotion. So this should complement, this should be, again, that's why it's called IMC, Integrated Marketing Communications, trying to get into a goal that the brand, the marketer establishes through different tools, right? It's like a carpenter. It's like using a hammer to do something, using other tools that will help you do the piece of furniture that you want. Now, let's break down the role of self-promotion in two forms, or in two targets, we can say, right? What self-promotion tries to do is use the incentives to motivate action in business to consumer relationships, right? A manufacturer trying to incentivize the final consumer, the final users, or the second target would be other businesses, B2B. Here we can mention members of the trade channel and other business buyers. Probably you are a producer of I don't know, office equipment, right? And you would sell your product, office equipment, to other retailers, right? Office Max and other big box stores or smaller stores that are specialized in office supplies and equipment, which are the intermediaries. But also you target organizations, schools, universities, government offices who are the users of your office equipment and supply, right? So these are the two broad targets, and that's how we will go over the different self-promotion techniques and tactics for the rest of this lecture. But one more time, don't forget, self-promotion serves different purposes than mass media advertising. And in fact, because of this, you have that many firms actually spend more money of their marketing budget on self-promotions, either with consumers and or trade and business channels, because it provides, depending on their context, depending on their product sector, etc., the business sector, it provides more returns than advertising, right? Especially if you talk about raw materials, equipment, machinery, right? Parts that products that are parts used to assembly or to be used in the manufacturing of other products. They will probably use more personal selling, more self-promotion than massive advertisements, right? These numbers you see here, these are from a survey. This is something included in your textbook, right, of US companies. Now let's look at what are the reasons why in the business sector we see increasing importance and greater reliance on self-promotion. First, there is a pressure on marketing managers for greater accountability, especially after recession times and when there are not so peak growths in economic environment, when companies face financial challenges. You want your businesses, you want your managers, your executives to be more accountable on how they spend their marketing budget, right? If you are the owner, if you are a stockholder in a firm, well, you want your managers to be responsible and tell what is you do with your marketing dollars and how they provide a return on investment. And one of the tools in the promotional mix that allows a better measurement of the expenditures is self-promotion. Why? Because in advertising, you spend part of your budget for the production of commercials or pieces of advertisement that you run in TV networks or radios or in magazines, and you don't have so much accuracy in how many people actually read the magazine and saw your ad, how many people actually watch your commercial in TV or listen in the radio, and out of those, how many actually decided to purchase something from your store, from your brand. How many of these really were triggered and were pushed to buy your product after looking to your ad, after watching your commercial? We don't know that for sure. There are estimations, there are some tools to assess and try to monitor that, but certainly the self-promotions provides a more precise and accurate measurement. Why? Because, for example, if you offer a coupon that you distribute through the mail or through a banner in social media or in a website, people actually click there, click on that banner, on that display that shows a 30% off or some other type of self-promotion. And that is something that you can actually count and measure and record. The same thing if you send mails, regular mails to the population, you have the return of those coupons, or if somebody is going to call and place an order over the phone, you ask for that coupon to be redeemed, right? The same thing in retailers. You have to provide the coupon to the cashier if you go to HEB so that you can get the discount. So that's a way to have greater accountability and see the effectiveness of your promotion. Another reason for the use of self-promotion is that of the short-term market orientation that many firms require or demand. Many of the firms, especially those in the stock market that are traded in the stock market, they have to provide their results in a quarterly basis, right? As we see in this example of the report to stockholders for Home Depot company, right? So you see how their expectations and their efforts for performance are to be counted in every 3 months, right? Every quarter. And self-promotions allows the firm to measure those results in a faster, shorter term time frame, right? Advertising those long campaigns that may be over 2, 3, or 4 months, right? You will have to wait longer to assess and evaluate results. So in line with the previous reason, which is greater accountability, self-promotions allows you to get a measurement of the results much faster. Now you have more consumers who are deal-prone shoppers, right? Who are looking for not necessarily the lowest price, the cheapest product, but the greater value, right? One more time, especially in times of recession like the one we had after 2008, 2009. So people try to take care of, or pay attention to how they spend the money and try to get greater value. And once again, let's go back to the definition of self-promotion. It's about influencing consumers in terms of their perception of the value they receive from what they purchase. There is a proliferation of brands, not only national, domestic brands here in the US, but you have international players, companies and brands from abroad that come to the US, and vice versa, companies from the US and North America that go abroad to Latin America, to Asia, to Europe. So you really have stronger competition. Those competitors are also trying to send their messages to the target consumer, competing for their attention. And one way to gain the attention and break through the media clutter in the midst of brand proliferation is through self-promotions, right? That's something that catches the attention as compared to other forms of advertisements or communications. There is an increasing power also of large retailers, right? A concentration of power in terms of the volume that of merchandise that they handle, and therefore if you are a producer and you want to sell through Walmart or through Lowe's or Amazon, etc., well, they have a power and bargaining and negotiation power that you probably as a manufacturer have to make concessions in terms of the price at which you sell. Remember that these companies, because they purchase large volumes and because of the economies of scale, they demand for discounts, for other forms of merchandise allowances. We will see that in few more minutes. So there is a need to compete, for instance, against the private labels of these companies, right? HEB, for example, they have a whole line of groceries and products that they are not national brands or well-known brands, but they are their own Hill Country Fair or other brands, Walmart's Great Value brands and others. So if your tomato ketchup that you produce, if your brand of tomato ketchup is going to compete against HEB's brand of tomato ketchup, well, if they sell for 50 cents less, for $1 less, you have to then use self-promotion to compete. Now let's talk about what are the specific objectives of consumer self-promotion. You see this as discussed earlier, as part of an integrated marketing campaign, you have to use different channels that are integrated and consistent. As we see here in this, on the left hand side is a screenshot of the university's bookstore and one of their self-promotion they had in the winter. But you see the same approach if you go to the actual store or the establishment, and if you receive emails, you have a consistent message. One more time, the objectives, regardless what they are, they should be implemented in a way that they are consistent, that they are aligned. These are the 6 main objectives for consumer market self-promotion. Stimulate repeat purchases. Let's go clockwise, right? You want to do this because you expect your consumers to purchase again from you, if they are satisfied, of course, provided the brand, the product satisfies the need. Sometimes you use self-promotions to introduce a new brand. So you want to have a word of mouth, an awareness of your brand into the target market population that is better accomplished through this type of attention getting and intention oriented tools. Contribute to the integrated marketing communications as a support of other advertising or public relation activities, right? You see this a lot in event promotions. You have concerts, you have festivals, and these are promoted through regular advertisements, but then you also throw to the consumers some self-promotions so that they create or trigger a word of mouth and buzz, and of course take advantage of some savings in the tickets. You have also the case of self-promotion being used to combat or disrupt competitor strategy. Not that you do it as part of a marketing plan, but suddenly your competitors do something that is taking customers away from you or sales. So you react by doing something about it. And many times the way to go is to keep your customers by throwing them some discounts or some loyalty programs or cards, right? You want to stimulate larger purchases. Sometimes the self-promotion is not about discounts in the form of you paying less, but maybe get more product. Instead of buying one, you get the second for half price, right? So you are stimulating larger purchases, and that's one way in which the self-promotion can be beneficial. stimulate trial purchases also, right? You are in the store, you are in the shopping mall, and they give you a sample, a free trial or of a food or a product there. In online and digital services, right? Subscription to streaming services, etc. Download music or other applications in mobile phones. You see a lot of these trial periods. You can download this app and it will not cost you for the first 3 days or 5 days or so. Of course, what they want you is to get hooked and then pay the regular subscription fee. So let's look at those techniques that are most commonly utilized. You know them. These are coupons, price off deals, gift cards, premiums, which is giving you more product. This is the premiums is not giving you a discount, but it's more about giving you an extra something. You buy a box of cereal, and the cereal has some toy or some book for your children, or some other product is complementary, right? Or maybe you get more of the product, right? When you see this type of pieces of promotion that we see on the right hand side of your screen, you buy one pizza and you get one free, but this is only on Wednesday in the evening. So these of course have to be planned accordingly to those days of the week that you have lowest traffic, right? You don't do probably this on the weekend when you will naturally and normally have more customers in your restaurant. So this is one more time something that you will do as part of a broader strategy. You have advertising specialties. What are the advertising specialties? Well, these are all these free stuff that you are given again in the events and the conventions, and you see whenever you go out to some fair or something festival that they are giving free t-shirts and mugs and other stuff that is a cost for them, but what they try to build is some favorable attitude, affinity towards the brand, so that later on you purchase from them, you are more likely to buy. And this is something that has been studied through research. You feel that there is a reciprocity, and next time you need something from a service that you have knowledge about, remember this helps also to support the creation of awareness, you will likely have preference for that brand. Other techniques are contest, sweepstakes. These require the active effort of the consumer to participate, to register and enroll in these sweepstakes and send the registration form. So this is not as passive as the previous slide examples, but the contest requires more engagement, right? Into trying to get the opportunity to win an award or something. You have trial offers and sampling techniques also, either in store where you are doing the grocery, either in your neighborhood, right? Door-to-door sampling. We probably don't see that much here, but in the past, in the 20th century, this was something more common and still is in some other parts of the US, probably more larger metropolitan areas and urban centers, and of course abroad in other countries. You have through the mail, through email as well, newspapers, or those samples that come in the package of a product that you purchase. So this is something that, one more time, we are used to see as consumers. We are familiar with some of these techniques, but as marketers, not as consumers, as marketers, we have to understand what is the functionality and the purpose of doing this in our organization. If we are to develop or implement a marketing plan, well, what are the best tools? One more time, following this analogy of carpenter, what are the tools that will help me to do to make a piece of furniture better? Well, these tools, among the ones we are looking throughout the semester, promotions is one of the major. Some companies use rebates, right, which is a form of benefit in terms of the price. Yeah, at this moment you are paying the full price, but if you do send this rebate claim form, you will get some money back, right, or some credit. So this is, at the end, technically is a saving, but as discussed earlier, what we want is to provide incentives to buy. Many customers will buy the product because of this incentive of a rebate, but not 100% of them will claim the rebate. So this is a profit or revenue for the company, of course, but it serves its purpose of being an incentive. Reward programs, loyalty cards. Again, this is something that helps get consumers a benefit, maybe not in cash, maybe not in actual money, but in points that will be rewarded or converted, claimed later into hotel nights or airline tickets. So yeah, it's not dollars, it's not a cash that you have in your hand, but it's the equivalent to that. And just to refer to a recent example, not here in the US, but in the other side of the world, in China, we are familiar with Black Friday and how this has become popular as a period after Thanksgiving. Well, actually, it's right. Yeah, after Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday, the next Monday, really successful and traditional has become, up to this point, periods of sales promotion in the United States by retailers, by brick and mortar stores, but also online. Well, look at this so-called Singles Day in China, which is pretty much the equivalent in terms of a big time of the year in which for marketers, for stores, for retailers, they provide incentives for consumers in terms of discounts, in terms of other sales promotion. But look at the volume. Here we have on the left side the comparison in terms of the volume in the year 2015, right? And you have first Thanksgiving sales, then Cyber Monday, and the red one, that's Singles Day in China. So look at the volume of sales is tremendous, is much higher, right? Several times higher than in the US. And the same trend for 2016, 2017, by the time that this chart was built, there was no data for the US, Thanksgiving, and Cyber Monday, but pretty much is the same tendency. When you go to Blackboard and download these chapter 11 slides, you can click in this link down here, and you will find interesting article and video about what Singles Day importance represents for China. Which, remember, China has or 1,200 or 1,300 million of consumer of population. So that's why we see these numbers. But Singles Day started not long ago. Certainly, the Black Friday tradition and Cyber Monday has been longer, but the Singles Day growth has been amazing. Here we see this exhibit 11.3 about the allocation of sales promotion spending. Of course, about half of it is clearly the majority marketing expenditures in events. But look on the left hand side, direct marketing, premiums and incentives, right? Probably around 20%. Retail promotions, coupons is not that large, but again, that's one of the tools that we are more used to see. And again, this all depends on segmentation. There are segments of consumers who are very prone to take advantage of deals, and that's what they are looking for. People who have books of coupons, because for them that's something that provides value. So you as a marketer want to clearly identify those targets, those segments of consumers that are gonna respond better to your activities. Now let's talk about sales promotion in the trade and business buyer. The objectives are not exactly the same as in the business to consumer channel, but here what you as a manufacturer who deals with intermediaries and with other businesses as customers is to increase sales, increase store traffic, encourage cooperation with the consumer market and sales promotion, and also if you want to start initial distribution. I mentioned before, if you have a product that you want a retailer to start distributing, probably this will be doable through a sales promotion directed towards the trade. These techniques include incentives in the form of push money, right? You offer price or money to the best salespeople, to the ones who perform better, right? And promote your product in the store. If you give that incentive, well, the personnel at a store will be more prone to recommend your product versus other manufacturers. There are allowances in terms of merchandise allowances, slotting fees, bill back allowances, off invoice allowances. These are all forms of some economic benefits. You sell to the retailer your merchandise, and you give them a free case of your product for every 10 cases they buy from you, for example. Or you offer a discount in exchange for the placement of the product in the central aisle in the section where your product category is sold, or for some privileged space on the shelf, etc. Maybe you provide sales training, but not money, not free product or discount, but maybe you will train the employees of that firm to use your technologies, to be better prepared to provide advice to customers. Maybe you will pay part of the advertisement that they make, the retail advertisement, the flyers, etc. You put part of the money, and that's called the cooperative advertisement. You have other techniques, which are participating in trade shows, um, giving business gifts, right? The type of advertising specialties that we talked earlier, giving trial offers, frequency programs. What is the risk of using so much self-promotion? Well, the risks are mostly that if you use self-promotion in excess and your product or your brand is, for example, positioned as a premium brand, as a high level upscale brand, you don't want to devaluate your brand, and you don't want a perception of lower value if you offer too much of discount, for example, or so often. Stella Artois, the beer that was, I don't think was introduced that long ago. It's some just few years, but the business model, their positioning strategy is as a higher quality beer, more exclusive, and you don't find them in the same price level as Budweiser or Miller Lite. So it is hard for them for you to find so frequent promotions on them. One more time, they are taking care and protecting the positioning of this brand. In the tourism and services industry, the same thing, like if you do discounts in hotels, in services, people get used to the discounts and then they will demand discounts, and whenever you raise a price up, whenever you increase the room rates, they will complain and they will not want to pay because you have educated them, you have got them used to discounts. So have to be careful with that. Sometimes doing sales promotion borrows from future sales. If you have in your restaurant a weekend with discounts and special lower prices, what happens sometimes is that customers that were going to come later, they will all concentrate in this weekend. They will come now to take advantage of it. So you borrow from future sales because most customers took advantage of the sales promotion in a moment you probably did not desire it that way. You sometimes alienate customers because you bring customers of one profile and other customers don't want to probably be in the crowd in this special sales where you have people together in the store at the same time. So we gotta be careful of that. And there are of course legal considerations, right? If you do, for example, sweepstakes or some other form of contest, you have to comply with legal requirements, right? Especially in products for which there is high regulation and restrictions, such as alcoholic beverage, right? As we see here. If you want to participate in this Cruzan's rum contest, then you have to, of course, abide to the law and to the regulations. And the rules really, I mean, you really need an attorney to do this type of self-promotion because you have to go through many legal requirements. Of course, it depends on the state you are, but one more time, it's not just a simple task of, well, let's be creative and do some contest. You have to pay attention to the legal implications. Now let's go to another type of promotional tool, which is not necessarily self-promotion, is not conventional advertising, but this is more like a blend or a mixture in terms of the purpose of these tools. It's like a dual role. This is point of purchase displays or advertisement. And the reason why these are more like a hybrid is that they do serve some advertising functions, such as attract shoppers' attention, to inform about brand benefits, etc. But these, at the same time, are communication tools for sales promotions, right? It is not uncommon to see how, like we see in this image on the left-hand side, on the lower left-hand side of the slide, Dennis, on the table you find material that displays information about their products, but also inform about self-promotions, such as the gift card that they are promoting there. So when we go to establishments that we see all these materials, all these point of purchase displays, they help to maintain loyalty, right? Because when you see, for example, the advertisements and displays of brands that you already have or you have used, you feel that, well, if it's something that is there and people talk about and the business promotes, then it must be good, right? That is a psychological effect that we tend to confirm that our decisions that we've made are right decisions if we see them publicized, if we see that other people use it, and of course if you continue to see advertising of it, because it's a cue or indicator that the brand is strong, successful, etc. Again, in restaurants, in stores, and other establishments, we see these materials to stimulate trial purchase, to increase demand. And in the case of the formats used, for example, in retailers, in the trade channel, we see short-term displays, long-term displays, depending on what the marketing plan dictates. Remember that this is something that should be done as part of a planning process, ideally speaking, not just as a random activity, spontaneously came up with the idea and let's do advertising. No, ideally you want to achieve a goal that you have in writing, and that will determine whether you hire or have a contract for what, for 1 month, for 3 months, for 6 months. In the case of the different options for points of purchase advertising, as you see in figure 11.5, this is also in your textbook, of course, the options are varied and they are diverse, right? So take a look to this when you read this chapter, because one, it depends on what is the purpose, and other support media that also communicates benefits, informs, and provide information about self-promotion is that we see on the streets, right? On bus stations, on airports. This is outdoor signage and billboards. Again, these are part of a complementary tool for traditional advertisement, for public relations. And what we have seen as a trend in recent years is that these are used as a creative creative opportunity for marketers to try to catch the attention, break through the clutter in some way that some would consider this is like guerrilla marketing, right? As we see, for example, on this outdoor signage or display on the upper right hand side by 3M. which is basically saying our security glass is so strong and armored and resistant that we even dare to put here all these bills, all this money, dollar bills, and we are sure you will not be able to open or break this glass, right? So these are opportunities to be creative. One more time, we see this also in the other two examples in the lower images. So take up advantage of these opportunities that you probably cannot tell through a magazine ad, right? Or through the radio. If you do radio commercials, probably you will not be able to elaborate on this type of messages and communicate what you want to. We see many special local small businesses, they use this out-of-home support media in transit, right? I remember here in Corpus Christi, one of the most prominent transit advertisement is about an attorney office. If you are here in Corpus Christi, you probably have seen. I'm not gonna do an advertisement for them, but this is something very, very popular, and it works. And last but not least, another part of support media that sometimes is overlooked or neglected is the packaging of your product. If you don't sell a service, but you do sell a physical good, a tangible product, packaging is a way to stand out, right? To communicate, to create an impression and provide cues about what your product benefits or unique positioning is about. So this is sometimes called the last 5 seconds of marketing, because if you are in the store in front of the shelf with different options, different alternatives that you could purchase, maybe a distinctive impact deciding or determining what you will buy is the packaging. Simple the packaging, and don't consider other features of the product, right? So this is again falling into this category of support media. I will stop here and we will continue with chapter 12.